My closest friend worked in a bar, and one night I noticed a sleazy man slip drugs into her drink. Acting quickly, I called the police and managed to save her from disaster. Unexpectedly, she was furious with me for intervening. He drugged me because he likes me. Otherwise, why didn't he do it to anyone else? You're just jealous and don't want me to marry into a wealthy family. I'll kill you. Her eyes burned red with rage as she screamed, stabbing me over and over until I died in unbearable pain. When I opened my eyes, I found myself transported back to the day she was drugged. See that girl carrying the plates? One of the disgusting men said. She's always wearing those tiny skirts to tempt people. Let's see how she is tonight. Hearing those lewd words startled me. Looking around, I realized I had been reincarnated. My gaze landed on a group of sleazy men at a nearby table. They were ogling Isabel's legs and curves, making crude jokes and laughing loudly. The scene mirrored what had happened in my past life. Realizing they were targeting her again, I quickly called out, "Isabel, those guys over there are clearly up to no good. Why don't you take the night off and go home? It might be dangerous to stay." "It's fine," she replied with a smug look. "They only have bad intentions because they're into me. Nothing bad will happen." Dismissing my warning, she turned and walked away confidently. Back then, I assumed she was just naive and didn't understand how cruel the world could be. Wanting to protect her, I kept an eye on her. Sure enough, those men continued to target her. Acting fast, I called the police and stopped them before they could harm her. When Isabel woke up, she was shocked to see me. "Why are you here?" she asked. I explained how I had saved her from a potential assault. To my disbelief, she glared at me angrily. "Are you insane, Evelyn? Do you have any idea how rich that man is? I think you're just bitter because you're used to being poor and can't stand the idea of me marrying into a wealthy family," she shouted. Her reaction left me stunned and irritated. "Do you think you can marry into wealth just by sleeping with someone?" I asked, incredulous. "Of course. He drugged me because he's interested in me. Why else would he choose me over anyone else?" she retorted, trembling with rage. "I've worked at this bar waiting for this chance, and you've ruined everything." Her voice grew more hysterical with every word, her bloodshot eyes glaring at me with hatred. Suddenly, she lunged at me, and before I could react, she stabbed me repeatedly, screaming, "Die, die, die, you deserve this." Her blind fury drove her to kill me as I lay there, overwhelmed by despair and pain. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I had been reincarnated. It seemed even fate thought I had been wronged. This time, I decided to let things unfold and see if my drugged friend could truly marry into wealth. My thoughts were interrupted by the sleazy men's vulgar comments. "She's got a great figure. Curves in all the right places and a slim waist. I bet she's amazing in bed." One of them leered. Another laughed, rubbing his chin. "Let's call her over and have a little fun before we take her upstairs." I called Isabel over before they could, just as I had in my past life. I warned her again, but this time, I caught a glimpse of excitement flickering in her eyes and the barely suppressed smirk on her lips. How blind I had been in my past life to think she was innocent. Looking back, I could see through her schemes now. She was already daydreaming about the wealthy life that awaited her after a one-night stand. This time, I decided not to interfere. If she wanted to be foolish, so be it. Isabel swayed her hips provocatively as she walked toward the men, even throwing them a flirtatious glance. The group cheered and whistled in delight. "Wow, you've got some moves. Here's a stack of cash for you," one of them said, slipping a thick wad of bills into her top. Her eyes sparkled greedily as she slid into the man's arms, rubbing against him shamelessly. "Brother, when are we going upstairs?" she purred, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Don't be so impatient. Have a drink with me first, and then we'll head up," the man replied, handing her a glass. I watched as Isabel drank it down without hesitation. Internally, I sneered. Didn't she realize that if things were so simple, they wouldn't bother with drugs? Sure enough, she passed out soon after and was carried upstairs. Quietly, I followed, watching as the man entered a room. Moments later, about 10 more men joined him. "My dear friend, since you're so eager to sleep your way to riches, you'd better be prepared for the consequences," I thought, turning to leave the bar and heading home for a good night's sleep. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital for work. As I put on my white coat, someone knocked on the office door urgently. Dr. Evelyn, we have a patient with severe bleeding and an anal obstruction. Please come quickly, they said. I nodded and headed toward the emergency room. From a distance, I could hear someone crying out in pain. Help me! Where's the doctor? Please save me. I recognized the voice immediately. It was Isabel. Slowing my steps, I entered the room to find her lying on the bed, sweating profusely, her face streaked with tears. She looked utterly miserable, but I felt nothing but satisfaction. You've really gone too far. This is exactly what you deserve, I thought, hiding my smirk. Evelyn, you're finally here. Please help me. I'm in so much pain. Isabel clung to me desperately, like I was her last hope. Don't worry, let me check your condition, I said calmly, lifting the blanket covering her. Despite my years of medical experience, the sight shocked even me. Isabel, what on earth did you do last night? How did things end up this bad? I asked. Ashamed, Isabel bit her lip, her face contorting with humiliation. After a moment, she burst into loud sobs. Evelyn, how can I live like this? That man called in a group of his friends. I woke up in agony this morning and they were all gone. They just left me there. The more she cried, the more satisfaction I felt inside. Struggling to suppress the grin tugging at my lips, I quickly changed the subject. Don't panic. The most important thing for now is to prepare for surgery. I'll call your mom right away, I said, pretending to pull out my phone. Despite her pain, Isabel quickly stopped me. Don't call her. If my mom finds out, she'll kill me, she begged, her voice trembling with fear. Her words weren't exaggerated. Olivia, her mother, was infamous for her harsh and unreasonable temperament, often resorting to physical punishment. Isabel's family was poor, and her younger brother was at the age to marry. To secure funds, Olivia had planned to marry Isabel off to their 65-year-old neighbor. It was rumored that the dowry had already been negotiated at 880,000 yuan. Considering the scandal surrounding Isabel now, I knew this call would lead to fireworks, and I wasn't going to miss the show. But for the moment, I feigned compliance. All right, let's focus on the surgery first. Isabel was taken to the operating room, and the procedure was a success. After an hour, the wine bottle was finally removed. Internally, I marveled at her capacity. How did she even manage that? Watching her unconscious form on the hospital bed, I smirked to myself. The real drama was just about to start. Half an hour later, Olivia and Sebastian burst into the ward. The moment Olivia entered, her face twisted with fury as she pointed a trembling finger at Isabel. You wretched brat! Isabel, who had just regained consciousness, looked terrified. Mom, she whispered, her voice shaking. Don't you dare call me Mom, Olivia screamed, rushing forward to slap Isabel across the face repeatedly. I don't have a daughter like you. Sleeping with so many men, you should have just died. Still weak from the surgery, Isabel couldn't fight back. She cried out desperately, Mom, stop! Help me, I'm sorry. Her face turned swollen and red from the relentless slaps. Sebastian finally intervened, pulling Olivia away. Enough. The real issue now is what to do about the bride price. If something happens to her, how will we explain it to Henry? He said urgently. Though she stopped hitting Isabel, Olivia's rage didn't subside. How could I give birth to someone so useless? Not only can't you make money, but now you're costing us. Henry already knows about this mess and is demanding his money back. You'll come home tonight and smooth things over with him. Maybe we can still fix this, she snapped. Isabel's face turned pale, her eyes widening in horror. I'm not going back. If you want to smooth things over, you go. He's always leering at you. You'd do a much better job, she shouted. Sebastian, enraged, slapped Isabel so hard that her head whipped to the side. How dare you speak to your mother like that? He yelled. I don't care. I'm not going back. He'll kill me. Isabel screamed, tears streaming down her face. Henry's reputation as a violent and abusive man was well known. His first wife had died from his mistreatment, and no one dared to marry him afterward. Isabel resisted with all her strength, but Olivia's grip was firm, and she dragged Isabel off the bed. Ah, my dot. But? Isabel cried out in pain as blood seeped through her clothes. Evelyn, help me, she begged, her eyes pleading. The sight triggered a memory from my past life, where I had begged her for mercy in the same way, only for her to stab me repeatedly. Suppressing my anger, I put on a concerned face. Auntie, don't be too hard on Isabel. She didn't mean for this to happen. Look at her. She's already in bad shape, I said softly. Olivia's eyes landed on the bloodstains on Isabel's clothes and she clenched her teeth. Worthless, ruined, she spat, punching and kicking Isabel again. The commotion drew a crowd of elderly onlookers to the corridor. I heard she slept with over a dozen men in one night and was brought in this morning covered in blood, one whispered. She played so rough she can't control her bowels anymore, another added. Or have children, someone else chimed in. Their wild gossip only fueled Olivia's anger. She beat Isabel until she lost consciousness, her body limp and bleeding. Later, I uploaded the photos of the sleazy men I'd taken the previous night to social media and used image recognition software to identify them. Eventually, I discovered that one of them was Lucas, the eldest son of a local chemical fertilizer factory owner. A second-generation factory heir, he had a wife and a 3-year-old daughter. Back in the ward, Sebastian and Olivia sat by Isabel's bed, their faces full of worry. At this point, maybe we should just return the 880,000 yen, Sebastian said with a sigh. Henry won't want her now. No way, Olivia snapped. If we give it back, how will Jiming find a wife? She glared at Isabel's unconscious form, anger boiling just beneath the surface. It was the perfect moment for me to step in. Pretending to be sympathetic, I sighed and stared at my phone. Poor Isabel. She's been ruined like this, and those men didn't even pay her a cent, I said, forcing a tear to roll down my cheek. My words struck a chord with Olivia. Even without the bride price, she realized she could still demand compensation. She snatched my phone and squinted at the details I had pulled up about Lucas. So this is the man behind it all? Just wait. My innocent daughter, I won't let them off so easily. She growled, slapping her thigh. Rolling up her sleeves, she stormed out, dragging Sebastian with her. An hour later, Isabel began to stir in her hospital bed. I was the only person left in the hospital ward. Isabel looked at me and asked, "Where are they?" "Don't worry, Uncle and Aunt have gone to demand justice for you," I replied calmly. "What? They've gone to confront Lucas?" Isabel exclaimed. As I expected, she had known all along that the man involved was Lucas. She had been waiting for him to take the bait, like a fisherman waiting by a tree stump for a hare to wander by. Her goal had always been to become either Mrs. Lucas or his mistress. Isabel tried to sit up, but I gently pushed her back down, telling her not to rush. Frustrated by my restraint, she blurted out, "What do you know?" "Seeking justice won't get much money. I want to be Mrs. Lucas." Bullseye. She had no real skills but grand ambitions. I mocked her silently in my heart, but pretended to be shocked. "But I heard Lucas already has a wife." "Oh my goodness, Isabel, are you a mistress?" I exclaimed loudly, making sure my voice carried into the corridor where people were passing by. A group of elderly women walking by overheard the word mistress and instantly stopped. Their gossip radar activated. "What are you looking at?" Isabel snapped angrily at the women. Not ones to back down, the older ladies, feeling insulted, began to taunt her. Such a young girl, yet instead of learning proper behavior, she chooses to become a mistress. How shameless. One said, "You're someone with a father, but no mother to teach you properly." Another chimed in, "This is the same girl who got so messed up by men that she can't even control her bowels anymore." Added a third. The relentless gossip made Isabel lose her composure. "What do you old hags know? I'm not a mistress. The one who isn't loved is the mistress," she screamed, her voice trembling with rage. The women weren't fazed and continued their verbal assault. "Who are you calling old? Say it again if you dare, and I'll rip your mouth apart." One threatened. "Come on, let's post this online and let everyone judge you," another said with mock indignation. The scene grew more chaotic as more people gathered at the ward door. Isabel, unable to out-argue the experienced women, clutched her hair and screamed, "Get lost!" Just as she seemed on the verge of a breakdown, Sebastian and Olivia returned, both sporting visible injuries. Olivia shouted, "What's going on here? Get out of the way and let me in." One of the older women turned to Olivia and asked, "Are you the mother of that mistress?" Sebastian and Olivia looked at each other in confusion before replying in unison, "What mistress?" The woman pointed at Isabel lying in the hospital bed. "That girl. Instead of learning good behavior, she wants to be a mistress." Olivia's face turned red with anger. You useless child. You never stop causing trouble. It was bad enough you messed around at the bar, but now you want to be a mistress? How are we supposed to explain this to Henry now? She shouted. Her anger boiled over, and she rushed over to grab Isabel by the hair, making her scream in pain. Ah, Mom, stop! Meanwhile, the elderly women at the door continued their chatter. Good, she deserves to be taught a lesson, one said, nodding approvingly. Inside, I was secretly delighted. Well done, I thought. After about 5 or 6 minutes, the security guards arrived and finally restored order. The ward quieted down, with Sebastian and Olivia sitting on the chairs, panting and glaring at Isabel. Looking at their injuries, I asked, "What happened?" "Don't even bring it up," Sebastian muttered angrily. "That Lucas wouldn't even see us. He accused us of lying and trying to extort him, then sent his bodyguards to beat us up." "Oh, Uncle and Aunt, you were too hasty," I said, shaking my head. "We don't have any solid evidence yet, so of course he won't admit it. We have witnesses, but no physical proof." I pointed at Isabel in the hospital bed. She immediately denied it. "You're lying. Lucas didn't rape me. We're in love. I worked at the bar and he kept watching me. Yesterday, he drugged me because he wanted to sleep with me. That was his way of showing he loves me. He must have been afraid I'd reject him, so he used drugs." Her tone grew coy as she spoke, as if Lucas had genuinely confessed his love to her. I rolled my eyes. "Sure, he drugged you because he loves you. Why didn't he drug anyone else then?" "You're delusional," I said sarcastically. Olivia's temper flared again. "What nonsense are you spouting? He drugged you and then had a bunch of men mess with you. How did we end up with such a disgrace for a daughter? He got the others involved because I'm too perfect, and he wanted to show me off," Isabel replied, fully convincing herself of her own fantasy. "You don't understand at all. Dad, Mom, I'm confident I can become Mrs. Lucas. Just wait and see. We'll be counting money in no time." Sebastian and Olivia's expressions softened at the mention of money. "Really?" they asked, their tone skeptical yet intrigued. "Of course," I interjected. "If that's the case, Isabel, you should seize the opportunity. But isn't his wife very possessive?" "What's there to fear?" Isabel scoffed. "She's 10 years older than Lucas. She's already old and unattractive. She's no competition for me." Her unfounded confidence amused me, but I said nothing. Growing impatient with my silence, Isabel snapped. "Evelyn, are you jealous of me? Don't try to compete with me. He's mine." "Don't worry," I replied with a smirk. "I wouldn't want him even if he were free. I'm very particular about cleanliness." Misunderstanding my comment, Isabel snorted arrogantly and let the matter drop. A week later, Isabel was discharged from the hospital and went straight back to work at the bar that very night. I returned to my usual spot, sipping a drink and waiting for the inevitable drama. At 8 p.m., Lucas arrived at the bar with 3 friends. Isabel, her face flushed and eyes sparkling, sashayed over to them. "Lucas, you're here," she said coyly. "Oh ho, calling him so affectionately. Does your sister-in-law know about this?" One of Lucas's friends teased. "Who are you?" Lucas asked, frowning. "Don't you remember me? You said I was good at dancing last week." Isabel pouted. Lucas's face lit up with recognition. Putting his arm around her, he leered. "Oh, it's you. Did you enjoy yourself that night? Want to do it again?" Blushing, Isabel nodded. "I knew you loved me." Impatient, Lucas replied, "Of course I do. I love you to death." Satisfied, Isabel followed Lucas and his friends upstairs to the hotel. Meanwhile, I recorded the scene and sent the video to Lucas's wife via private message. Within moments, it was marked as read. To escalate matters further, I also sent her footage from the bar the previous week and an edited audio clip of Isabel saying, "The one who isn't loved is the mistress. His wife is already old and worn out. I'm confident I can become Mrs. Lucas," Isabel declared smugly. I decided to stir the pot further. "If you don't act quickly, his family fortune might be taken away. After tonight, she might even get pregnant with a son," I added, sending Lucas's wife the address of the bar along with my message. Then I waited for the chaos to unfold. About half an hour later, Lucas's wife stormed into the hotel, seething with anger. Since it was a small, privately owned establishment, she easily got the room key after explaining she was there to catch her husband cheating. I trailed behind her, barely able to contain my excitement. Lucas's wife was both decisive and fierce. After swiping the key card, she kicked the door open and barged in. Inside, chaos reigned. Naked bodies were tangled together on the bed. "Lucas, you're really living it up," she exclaimed. Lucas's eyes widened in shock as he scrambled to his feet, kicking Isabel off him in the process. "Wife? Why are you here?" he stammered. "Why am I here? If I hadn't come, our entire family would have been ruined," she snapped, slapping him across the face. "I'm warning you, even if we divorce, I'll make sure you leave with nothing." No, I won't get divorced," Lucas cried, shaking his head furiously like a panicked child. Isabel, still on the bed, screamed hysterically. "If you're not divorcing, then what about me?" She glared at Lucas's wife, adding, "Look, the woman you found outside is trying to replace you." Lucas immediately turned to Isabel and yelled, "Shut up! This has nothing to do with you." Then he softened his tone toward his wife. "You've misunderstood. She seduced me. It was a moment of weakness. Let's go home. You can punish me however you want." Hearing Lucas pin the blame on her, Isabel's expression darkened. "Lucas, that's not what you said before. You told me you loved me," she protested, running to his side. "Shut up," Lucas roared, pushing her away. "You're nothing but a tramp who sells herself and has been with countless men. How could I possibly love someone like you?" His cruel words shattered Isabel's illusions, but she wasn't ready to give up. "If you don't love me, why were you always watching me? Why did you sleep with me?" she cried. "Enough," Lucas interrupted, slapping her hard. "Don't try to act virtuous now. I'm not falling for your games." He spat at her in disgust. Turning back to his wife, he pleaded, "Wife, believe me, I only love you." His wife sneered coldly. "If you love me, prove it. Slap her 10 times and maybe I'll believe you." Lucas didn't hesitate. Each slap landed harder than the last, swelling Isabel's face until it resembled a pig's head. For the final few slaps, she struggled and screamed, but Lucas's friends held her down to make sure she couldn't resist. By the time he finished, she spat out blood and a couple of teeth, her face twisted in despair. "Completely broken," Isabel snapped. With bloodshot eyes and a bloody mouth, she lunged at Lucas like a crazed animal, punching and kicking him relentlessly. "Give me back my dignity. You used me even though you didn't love me. I'll kill you," she screamed. Lucas tried to shield himself, but Isabel struck his lower back with full force, causing him to collapse in pain. Then she focused her attack on his groin, kicking him with all her strength. Lucas let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed throughout the room. His wife watched the scene unfold with icy detachment, making no move to help. Lucas's friends, horrified, instinctively covered their own groins and retreated to a safe distance. I had no intention of intervening either. Lucas had brought this upon himself. A desperate woman can unleash astonishing strength, and Isabel's fury knocked Lucas unconscious. In the end, he was rushed to the hospital, while the rest of us were taken to the police station. At the station, Lucas's wife and I were released after routine questioning, as neither of us had been involved in the debauchery or violence. Isabel, however, accused Lucas and the other 10 men of drugging and raping her. After a thorough investigation, the police confirmed her claims. The next day, the remaining 7 men were arrested and brought to justice, with all participants in the assault receiving 3-year prison sentences. Lucas, still recovering in the hospital, was released on bail pending trial but couldn't escape eventual punishment. Isabel, however, also faced legal consequences for certain behaviors and was detained for 15 days. A few days later, Isabel walked out of the police station, her hair disheveled and her face ashen, like a ghost of her former self. Sebastian and Olivia were waiting for her, furious. "You disgraceful child," Olivia yelled. "The eldest son of the Z family is now useless, and they're threatening to sue us for 1 million yen. How on earth are we supposed to pay that? What a sin! What a sin!" she wailed, grinding her teeth in frustration. "It serves him right. Biting off that filthy thing of his was too kind. He deserved to be killed outright." Isabel muttered darkly, her eyes bulging with anger. Her appearance was terrifying, as if she were possessed. Not long after, Lucas's father began showing up at their door with thugs, smashing everything in sight and demanding the 1 million yen. Desperate, Olivia came to me, begging for a loan. Naturally, I refused, making up a casual excuse. I even hinted that there were faster ways to make money online. Taking my suggestion to heart, Sebastian and Olivia began exploiting Isabel's misfortune by live streaming for sympathy. In the background of their videos, their destroyed home served as a grim backdrop, while Isabel sat lifelessly in the center, her spirit utterly broken. Sebastian and Olivia clung to each other dramatically, their faces full of sorrow as they begged for donations. Olivia was dramatically shaking Isabel's shoulders, sobbing loudly while exaggerating the horrors her daughter had endured. Those monsters dragged my poor daughter into a tiny dark room. And now that rapist is demanding we pay him 1 million yen. This will ruin our entire family, she wailed. Pointing to Isabel's left hand, Olivia cried, "Look, my daughter is so young but already suffering from severe depression. She hurts herself at home every day." Isabel's wrist clearly bore a dozen fresh cut marks. Playing the victim worked exceptionally well. The live broadcast skyrocketed to the top of the local rankings, with virtual gifts pouring in nonstop. Judging by the donations, they could easily earn 500,000 yuan in a single night. Tasting success, they continued streaming for 3 more nights and amassed a fortune, quickly paying off the 1 million yuan debt. However, Isabel's mental and physical state worsened visibly with each passing day. I couldn't help but suspect that her parents were intentionally pushing her to evoke more sympathy from their viewers. On the 4th day, Lucas's wife uploaded a video and audio clip exposing Isabel. The hashtags related to the scandal quickly trended, and netizens began demanding their money back. "Refund the money. I spent 5,000 yen on gifts. I'm furious." One comment read, "Isabel was just bitter because she failed to become a mistress and decided to play the victim instead." Said another, "Neither of them is a good person. Everyone deserves to face the consequences." Comments poured in, condemning both Lucas and Isabel. "Girls, wake up. If a man truly loves you, he'll never let you get hurt like this," others advised. The online outrage escalated as people tagged cyber police and official platforms. Unable to handle the backlash, Olivia deleted her account and decided to stay out of sight. That evening, I went to their house. As I approached, the sounds of smashing objects and heated arguments reached my ears. Not wanting to get involved, I stayed outside. What do we do now? Everyone online is demanding we return the money. How are we supposed to live if we do? Olivia asked, panicked. Don't worry, we deleted the accounts. They can't find us. If they insist on repayment, well, we don't have the money anyway. What are they going to do, take our lives? Sebastian replied. And what about the betrothal gift money from Henry's family? That old man came today, demanding we pay him back. Olivia said, exasperated. We can't return it. If we do, what will our son use to get married? Just send Isabel to him. Let him take her or leave her. We've done our part by giving him the person. Sebastian suggested coldly. After their discussion, they turned their anger on Isabel. Look at you. All you did was make a few superficial cuts and now you're lying around half dead. You're going to Henry's house later. We're done dealing with you. Olivia snapped. Hearing this, I gasped quietly. They really were abusing Isabel. Trembling with fear, Isabel whimpered, Mom, I can't go. He'll beat me to death. Olivia's voice shot up in anger. You're going whether you like it or not. If you don't go, I'll kill you myself. Sebastian chimed in, sounding resigned but no less heartless. If you refuse, we'll have to pay back that 880,000 yen. What about your brother? What about us? You're the daughter. You should think about your family. Isabel finally broke down, screaming hysterically. After a few minutes, the house fell silent. Sensing they were coming out, I quickly moved to a safer spot. The door opened and Isabel emerged like a lifeless puppet, dragged along by her parents. They delivered her to Henry's doorstep. He had greasy skin, yellowed teeth, and a cigarette dangling from his lips. His lecherous grin made it clear why Isabel didn't want to marry him. What's this? Henry asked, his voice dripping with disdain. Olivia forced a smile. We brought our daughter here to apologize. Don't be upset. Starting tonight, she'll be your wife. You can discipline her however you like. Henry scoffed. Secondhand goods? If you want me to take her, return 200,000 yen of the bride price. Sebastian and Olivia looked uneasy, but eventually agreed. It was better than returning the full 880,000 yen. Henry grabbed Isabel, licking her face a few times as he led her inside. The sight was revolting, like swallowing bile.